Hello team and welcome back to Old Marketing School. Today I am very excited because we're going to do case study time / coaching times / feedback time with one of our graduates, the fantastic Ashlee. Ashlee, thank you for being here today with me.
Always a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
I love the fact that I kind of throw us into the deep end with what we're going to do. We kind of brainstorm it together literally 5.5 seconds before we jumped on. But I get to also help Ashlee and hopefully inspire you as well that are watching today with one of the projects that we worked on together for the certification. And also one of the challenges / kind of, little problems that Ashlee is trying to figure out to make it even more efficient. Because one of the things that we do for the certification is also create some systems and curate some systems as well as projects as well. And one of my favorite systems that Ashlee already had, which I love, so we kind of like troubleshoot a few things together in the past, is the content systems, which you can call it Content OS, you can call it Backlog, you can call it Calendar. For me and for what we taught, we love to have moving parts in it, but also obviously everybody has it different. So today we wanted to go through what Ashlee calls the content bank. So her content bank, a couple of notes about this, and then also how together we can make it a bit more efficient for your needs as well. So my first question is obviously, can you please first give us a bit of a run through of who you are and what you do, and then we'll jump into the content bank as well.
Lovely. All right. So I am Ashlee Sang. I run Ashlee Sang Consulting, and that is how I do values-aligned brand messaging strategy with conscious and caring business owners who not only want to grow their revenue, but also their impact. So really, they view their business as a vehicle for change. And for us, the people I work with, values are really how we show up. They're how we stand out. They're how we are known.
Now you can tell why I was so excited to have Ashlee on. It was a pleasure to have you also as a student as well, because obviously different people will align in different ways, but I think you genuinely embodied what we want to build with the school. So it was such a pleasure. And also the fact that we could help you with some of these systems really excites me. Can you tell us a bit more about your content bank before we actually have a bit of a look and start implementing? What did you already have, and what were a couple of the changes that you did throughout the cohort?
Yes. So I did already have a content bank in Notion. I love that you are a Notion fiend. I feel like you use it even better than I do for sure, but I really, really enjoy Notion. That is like, it captures my entire brain and my entire business. And so I had this database in Notion where I could literally dump, all right, got this idea while I'm walking, got this idea that I saw someone else do and I want to do my take on it. Just dump all the ideas I had for content I want to create. And then I was able to allocate it to calendar dates. And then I'm able to cross off when it's been scheduled. I'm able to put the caption in there. I'm able to script my reels in there. I'm able to tag sort of what general category I'm talking about, so that hopefully moving forward, I can be really intentional with this is what I'm talking about now in order to promote this, so that it's really an ecosystem. That is a work in progress. I also am able to share it with my VA who does the actual scheduling. So she's able to update in real time without having to send emails and that sort of thing. So I really had the content bank specifically for social content, because that's just such a prolific amount of content you have to create, right? And then with Alt Marketing School, there was a whole session on repurposing. The entire focus throughout was about systems. And so I ended up also archiving all of my blog posts. And I then allocated various tags that sort of, all right, this is about purposeful business. This is about brand values. So just tagging what the content was about specifically. And where I have fallen short is being able to collate everything, being able to curate a list so that a real live example that just happened, I had in a paid membership that I'm part of, someone asking about audience personas. And so I wanted to share all the resources I've created around audience personas. And I had to manually find every single post and every single reel that I had created, all the things. So now I have a list of, all right, all these things are audience personas, or target audience, or related to the people that you want to serve, right? And so I would love to have a sort of systematized and much less manual way of orchestrating all of that.
I love that. Thank you so much for explaining and giving us that first action step we're going to look at. And I love this because, again, going back to the certification, and not just because Ashlee is here, because I don't want it to be like, well, she's on, of course you're gonna sing the praises, but I love the fact that you really took advantage of, obviously, the submissions. You get the chance to submit your content and your projects and your progress and get feedback. And you really took that seriously, which I love, because that's what I love to do. So we did some changes, which you mentioned, and then you asked me some questions about those as well. So I love that we're kind of replicating it here live right now as well, because I think it makes a point that I want to really stress with your systems. Whether you have already built them or whether you join us for the certification and you build them from scratch, regardless, your systems will evolve based on your needs. And I feel that's a bit of what happened with you. You saw this case, almost this real life case of, oh, I can give all of the best links of stuff that I talked about on the specific topic. And you realize that you were missing something still in your system. And I want to say this because another big issue that I find people have, and something that we actually, I'm going to say, are going to teach because we didn't teach it before. But something that we are going to teach in the certification as well is actually how to build your own systems, because I think people assume that we would know. And one of the problems that we have when we're building systems is that we use a template or we use something and we don't customize it because we don't know how to do it or we feel out of our depth. So this is a great example of how you can actually step back, look at what we have, in this case, Ashlee's content bank, and think about how can we then adapt based on the functionality of the platform. Now, we love Zoom and we use Zoom, so this is all we're going to use right now. But I also wanted to say that it's really important to understand that it's okay for it to evolve and change. So without further ado, as we're kind of kicking off, I'm going to open this bad boy. And by the magics involved in screen sharing, I'm not going to share audios for us. We're going to be able to see it together as well, and to have a bit of a look at the content bank. So we're not going to go through all of it, but I just want to highlight a few points. And then as I highlight them, Ashlee, if you have any questions or any notes, you can also ask me so that we can kind of see if there's any action steps for you to take. But I just want to show it first because I really like a couple of things here. I like, obviously, the calendar view is the first one, which I think is so important. I also like the fact that you filtered, which you can do with Notion, with different views based on upcoming stuff and past posts as well. And also, sneakingly, the blog posts are down here too, which I really, really love. So I am going to start with looking at what your main issue is. And then I also have, if you allow me to, a couple of more suggestions maybe that we can look into, because you know what happens. But let's look at this bad boy. This is the one, isn't it, Ashlee? We're on it. Bing. There it is. So you see, this is the list. And my question for you, in order to kind of like break it down as well, is, so we have 2 points here. I want to first show us something before the question comes, which is that from my understanding, we have two databases. So that's one of the things. We have also a resource, which I love, but also we have 2 databases. So the first thing that we need to remember if you're building a content bank of any sorts, or like, again, we call it like an OS, is that most likely you'll be able to filter and find the content from the different databases separately. It might be the easiest way. There are plenty of things that you can do, but we want to keep this for now achievable without having to change everything. So, but it would be good for you to be like, I want to look at all the content on this topic for social media and then for blog posts, and then you can send them all. So my first thing would be, let's look at the social post. So that's the first one that comes to mind. I like the idea that for different statuses, you might have different looks of them. Like in this case, this is like a table, like a list almost. And I think within this, what you can do, if you combine things together and you have an extra, like selection, like you see like in topics, we have like select one, right? If we have social post or blog post in that, then what you can do when you're sorting, then you can do subgroups. So for example, when you go into the filtering, I'm not going to do it now because they take forever, but you can actually create subgroups. So if you work to create subgroups, now it doesn't make sense to show us, but you can actually have all of the blog posts grouped together on one side, and then underneath you can have all the social ideas. Because I think what I would keep, you can obviously have also separate views, but what I would also suggest for you to have, whether you do want to do it separately or not, but it saves you from having too many views. I would have past posts is great, or backlog, that's what we call it also in the certification. Then I like the idea of the not yet posted. Actually, I would break it even more down into, I promise there's method to the madness, what we talk about in the lesson, which is like content ideas. So literally is the raw ideas, as you say, the things that just come up. And then you could almost have a secondary step, which is whether it's to edit or, whatever it is. I know that you already have statuses, but I would almost optimize that a bit more, because then it might make it also a bit easier for you to kind of look over it and kind of understand like how that's ready. Especially like if you're working with the assistant, I think breaking it down a bit more easily for her to see what's ready to go. If you're finding that the calendar, you're struggling to keep up with it, it kind of gives you also the option to have a view that has everything that's ready to go in there. And then the calendar can be more for overview instead of necessarily kind of keeping track with things. So maybe breaking down the status a bit more in the views can be a really powerful thing. Just something to think about within that. And within that, then it goes back to the audience personas and target audience element. I would use what you already have. So sorry if it's not super groundbreaking, but we don't want to add more work where there's no need for it. And I would almost look at the topics. And that's maybe where, again, if you do the combination of the databases as we talked about, and again, you can also do that kind of like split, the split groups like a subgroups. Then, if making sure that the topics evolve. And for example, if you see audience personas and things like this coming up, then you can just kind of have them as topics. And you could even do, if you want to, again, we're going to go wild, but you can have a backlog. You can have two backlogs. So like this, you can copy it twice. Like obviously this will have both social and blog posts, for example. You can have one that is only backlog for social. So obviously we filter it for the format of social, let's say. And then you filter it again for blog posts. And then this subgrouping that I talked about, you could have it so that, for example, it's broken down into the different topics. Unless you have a million topics, it can actually be quite a nice way for you to see it. And obviously it will be easy for you to search within the view. So I would definitely say is more about using what you already have, and looking into things like filtering and subgrouping will probably help you, but also breaking down a bit more the content creation process means that maybe you can have less views, but that everything comes together a bit more. So it's not really about adding too much, but it's about almost creating that. And then what you can do as well, by the way, and then I will finish with my thing, and any questions and stuff you can ask me, especially with the blog post. We'll go down, find this bad boy. A simple thing. Oh no, this is still pop. Oh, we're in the back post. So there's all social. Let me go to calendar. I was like, that's a lot. Let me go to calendar. So if we go to the blog post, what I like to do when it comes to the related content, you can just mention like what you could do as well, especially if it all comes together. You can actually mention the different pages. That's what literally these Notion things are. Every database has different pages. So you can then start mentioning with the @ sign, right? The different pages that are related to each other, literally within this. I would say you don't have to go crazy because life is short and like do it all now. But I think as you're going through it, especially if you want to look at content that you might want to reshare or update, that could be a good thing to do. So all you got to do, obviously I can't edit it, but I can show you. You will just add the name of the task here or the name of the actual page. And then you can say, for example, that would be Laura testimonial, maybe defining your why. Obviously it's not. And maybe defining your why is related to Laura testimonial. So you will just do the @ sign and add it in there as well. And I would say this is a great way to actually do related content so that you can have like a short list of all the tags that are related to each other. And then you can follow up on those pages and go back and forth as well. So these are a couple of things that I wanted to share. I hope it's not too much, but subgrouping is huge. Thinking about obviously combining things, using filtered views in a way that almost breaks down the process from inception all the way down a bit more, so that you can always make sure that all of the fields are filled, so that if you need to filter anything or look for anything, it's super easy for you to do. Now, any questions or any thoughts from you? Because I know that we really dissected this thing for us.
Yes. So I think it all makes sense. It's just a question of actually setting the time to implement. I always say that a strategy is only as good as it is implemented, because I, for one, struggle with that. And I know that most of my clients do too. So for me, it is, all right, I have some tasks to do. I want to make this as cohesive as possible. When am I going to actually hold myself accountable and dedicate the time to combine these databases and make it as refined as possible?
Awesome. Excellent question. So there's 2 points here. The first point is making sure that you choose the first step that doesn't affect the flow, especially with the system that is helping you with the content, because that's the first thing. You want to make sure that, especially if social media content is the one that goes on more often, that it doesn't snag that. So I would say I would combine the blog post with the social, basically. That would be the thing. And I would take that as the first task. I would almost have it, there's rush, but there's no rush, let's be honest. So I would almost have it as like milestones, and be like, when the first milestone is done, then you can take the time for the second. And depending on how much time you have and how important this is when it comes to the time streamlining, then you can set a hard deadline, or you can set more of like in the first quarter even. Because, you can literally, as we both know, you can literally set your times. So I would say, if you say let's say the first quarter, let's be a bit wild, I'm going to make sure that I combine both databases. Excellent. And then you write down, that's what I would do. What are the 3 steps that you need to take to do that? Because it's probably going to be 3 things. 1, move all the pages. You can literally copy paste them into the other database. 2, make sure that all the tags are synced as well. So actually, that's the first one. First, the tags are synced, then you copy paste. And then the final thing is just make sure that everything looks good. That's basically it. And that will be the first step. And then the second step for me would be, again, optimizing the views themselves. And then the third step, which is more recurring. So it's almost like you got two bigger projects, 2 milestones. And then the one is more recurring, is making sure that you really update the topics. And especially if there's anything coming up, you can update that as you go along. And also the other thing, so there's 2 things that you want to keep doing. Make sure the topics are always up to date. And also make sure that if there's any old content that you think about or that people ask you about, that it's fully in the content bank with the right topic. It doesn't have to be the date. There are some things that maybe you're like, it's okay if I write it or not, but definitely the link. It's got the name of what it is about. It's got the topic and it's got the link. And then obviously, all the other things that you can add, the more the better. But I would say, as you're actually refining the tags, maybe you delete some of them that you think are not super useful for you. So delete the tags or sync the tags, combine the databases, big job. Then refine your views and subgroups, second job. And then as ongoing is making sure the topics are up to date, and any content that comes back, if it's not in the content bank, that's where it goes.
That makes sense. Definitely a systems-minded person.
So that is how my brain works. So I really hope it helped. And thank you so much for showing us as well the behind the scenes of your content bank. It's such a great start. And I think just a couple of things that you really want to refine. So thank you so much for being here with us. And I want to say, if anybody wants to hear a bit more about what you do and what you're up to, where should people go?
Wow, thank you. And thanks so much for having me be part of Alt Marketing School too. To connect with me, my favorite way to chat with people is through the Toward Purpose and Progress newsletter. I have that at ashleesang.com/newsletter. Otherwise, you can definitely catch me on social at Ashlee Sang Consulting on Instagram, or just my name, Ashlee Sang, on LinkedIn.
Thank you so much again. And as always, we'll be back next time. In the meantime, class dismissed.
Hi, I'm Ashlee Sang. I run Ashlee Sang Consulting. I am a brand messaging strategist and marketing consultant, and Alt Marketing School was such a breath of fresh air. It covered such a wide range of topics, and even if I was familiar with the concepts, it's always nice to get fresh perspective and hear from passionate educators and be in community with a cohort of people who are at different points in their journey and have different missions and goals. I really appreciated the energy and intention behind Alt Marketing School. It really felt like a place that was values aligned and values focused. I loved being a student in the program. I highly recommend you join if you're at all curious about marketing from a place of values and with your audience at the center of everything.